birthday, Jordan. It is your birthday in a way, is it not?
Sure.
And it's my birthday in another way, is it not?
Sure.
Well, welcome to the podcast, everybody. It's our birthday bash celebration. It is our 6th year anniversary. And
wow, 6 years.
Yeah, how crazy is that? So this is the time of the podcast where we take a break from our main feed and we do something a little different, which is we cover a movie that does not have a series attached and is a movie that Jordan and I really like.
Yeah.
So last year you chose.
There Will Be Blood.
And so we've been waiting for a year to watch the movie.
Yep.
And we watched it.
Yeah. Newsflash, we watched it.
Yeah, okay. I thought there was more to that, but that was the flash. Yeah, so if you're a new listener, usually we cover franchises, and we exist to prove people wrong when they say sequels are never better than the originals. And if you are a new listener, strange that this is your first episode.
Maybe.
But we're happy you're here.
This is their fave movie.
Oh, yeah, I guess someone could come just for that.
But stick around for the rest.
Yeah, I can hope. I can only hope. So I wanted to do a little light housekeeping right up top. Because as people know, in the last year, we have had a child. And it's wonderful. It's the best thing in the world. But we have jobs. And we have artistic endeavors. And time, well, there's never enough of it.
You don't get more time after having a kid.
You really don't. But, I mean, if anyone's like, oh my gosh, I would never have a kid before doing artistic endeavors, don't let it stop you from having a kid, do your artistic endeavors and have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You can have both, but it's just different. But I fear that the future of this podcast could be burnout for us. But we like doing this, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's fun. It's a great thing. So I wanted to propose something to you on air.
That's okay. We can edit this out.
Yeah, but we're not gonna. And we're not gonna. I think here's my proposition to you. And I'm also wanting to do this because I did kind of want to get the feel for what the listeners thought. Because if they were like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible idea, we have a small enough audience that I'd be open to hearing that. I think we do a series, we take a week off. We do a series, we take a week off. We do a series, we take a week off. That is
I like that. Thought. But more than what the other stuff we were kicking around.
Yeah, because if we did like we're only going to do 3 episodes a month, it's like then you break up the flow.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we did something like, I'm using Star Wars as an example because it's a very easy example. We've already covered Star Wars. But, since that's a bigger series, we'd go, okay, the original trilogy, break. Prequel trilogy, break.
Got it.
New movies, break.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I like that.
You do?
I do. I think that's a great idea.
And I don't know exactly when we would start that.
Yeah.
Because I do kind of want to hear from people, but at the same time...
Who cares?
Well, I guess if there were any patrons that are like, I'm pulling my money now.
Well, that's not gonna. It's not gonna affect the Patreon.
And I teed you up, and you hit it right out of the park. Patreon is gonna stay the same.
Yeah.
And here's
which is one extra episode a month.
Yes. Yep. Now here's the other thing. If you're like, this is a nightmare, I don't know what I'd do with myself on that one time when they finish a series. What I'd do. Here's what you do. You get everyone in the world that you know to sign up for our Patreon, because if we make enough money from Patreon, we can quit our jobs and then we can do 2 episodes a week. You know what I'm saying? So,
Is that what you would like? 2 episodes a week, listener?
But no, we love our patrons and we know that you're there for us. And we have a nice small community and that's good.
Uh-huh.
But that was my thought. And maybe we start it with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
After Spider-Man, we'd take a week off, and then we do the next series.
Yeah.
And we could just see how it goes.
That week break allows you extra time to watch some of the movies in the series that we'll be covering, or all of them, or whatever. Well, because I know some people sometimes they haven't listened to some newer episodes yet because they would like to watch along.
Yeah.
While listening, and I love that. It just gives you a little extra time to do it.
Still kind of blows my mind that people do that. Yeah. And I love that about it. It's cool. Yeah, it gives extra time. And I know some of our most ardent fans of this show will often text me like in seasons and be like, hey, I'm catching up on episodes.
Yeah.
So I do think if we drop an episode, once we finish a series, then I think, I don't know that anyone would really notice.
Yeah.
Because, I do the same thing with like Blank Check.
Yeah.
I'll listen, and then when they hit something I don't know or I'm planning on watching, it's like, well, like they're covering a director right now that I want to listen to the episodes, but I plan on taking on the director someday.
Right.
So it's like, well, I'm not going to listen until they choose someone else, you
right.
know? So, okay. Starting with Spider-Man, which will be after Furiosa and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. When we finish Spider-Man, we'll take a week off, and then we'll do the series after that, and we'll start this new thing. I never thought that I'd be okay with that.
I know.
And this came to me a day ago.
I've prided ourselves on the fact that we've never had an interruption since we've started this podcast.
Never.
That's not easy.
But I thought, 6-year anniversary, we're breaking off another 5, Well, actually, we're past that. But
yeah.
Now, it's a good time to say, okay, here's the new kind of setup.
Yeah.
And it'll be nice for us because we're not there yet. I don't think we're burned out yet, but I could just feel that you and I are both getting like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this.
We can't record an episode in one sitting anymore. We just can't.
Yeah.
When before, it was pretty rare if we didn't finish in a single sitting. And
it was easy to do like 2 a week.
Easy.
Not easy, but easy compared to now. Now 2 a week is like impossible.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. We figured it out on air, and you guys got to peek behind the curtain. Just as we're going to peek behind the curtain of There Will Be Blood, which is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Now, I'll maintain eye contact because we know the people who made this movie. And I actually, when I was making the notes, I was like, why did I even write down some of these people? I know all this stuff.
You know all the producers and writers on this? Well, I guess there's only one writer.
Yeah, we don't talk about producers, usually.
Oh, cinematographer.
Robert Elswit.
Okay.
Composer, Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead. His second score.
What's his first?
It is like a documentary called Body Song.
But this is his first with PTA.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And he had to be kind of like PTA saw Body Song, liked the score, thought he'd be interesting. And actually the song when the oil explodes and it's like check, that's from that movie.
Oh,
that documentary.
Oh, cool.
That's why it's like never on any of the scores when you're trying to listen. It's on the Body Song score. So I basically PTA saw that and is a fan of Radiohead, obviously. And he was like, yeah, would you want to do this? Johnny was like, okay. But he also was apprehensive and he kept on being encouraging. And of course, he delivers one of my favorite scores to a movie.
Yeah.
Robert Elswit wins an Oscar for this movie. He's an all-timer.
Yeah.
One of the greats of all time.
Yeah.
And
I just got to look up others because I'm just kind of blanking. But continue.
I am too. But he is such an unbelievable cinematography. And this movie, kind of like The Zone of Interest, the way that they use sound is the way this movie uses cinematography, if that makes sense.
Sure. He did most recently things like King Richard. He's done a lot of interesting things, like a wide swath, because he's also done Skyscraper.
Oh wow! Well, go back, to like
Suburbicon, Inherent Vice. He did Ghost Protocol.
Oh wow! Okay.
He did Michael Clayton.
Oh man, yeah.
Punch Drunk Love.
Frequent PTA guy. I don't know.
Magnolia.
I think the last two
Boogie Nights.
movies, I think PTA was his own cinematographer.
I think that sounds well. What's his last 2 movies?
Phantom Thread and Licorice Pizza. I believe they both were that.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
He learned from the best.
Yeah.
So this movie comes out December 26, 2007. It has a $25 million budget. It makes 40 in the U.S., 77 worldwide.
Wait, what's the budget?
25.
Okay.
40 in the U.S., 77 worldwide. This is drama, mid-budget stuff.
It's rated R drama with that's like rated R for some violence.
Right.
It's not your grandma's rated R movie.
It's
if your
funny.
grandma likes sex and a lot more violence in her movies.
Yes, that is funny. That is funny, Jordan. Yeah, it's funny. I always cited this movie as a really cool example that like the MPAA got it right, because you could probably get away with PG-13, but it's like that's not the audience of people that should see this movie.
Right.
But when we were watching it, I was like, the violence is actually pretty gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
It is just a little bit, but when it hits, it's like, yeah, that's the bowling pin and the blood seeping out. You can't get away with that in PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a little too much.
It's all tone.
Yeah. So when did you first see this movie?
I can't remember. Well, okay, so my first memory with this movie is it was on TV. And it was the scene where Daniel and his brother Henry are at the beach swimming.
Oh,
and Daniel's telling him like, yeah, we get liquored up and take him to the Peachtree Dams. And
I said get him liquored up and take him to the
Henry
Peachtree
doesn't
Dams.
react.
Yeah.
And then it's a real tight shot on Daniel, and he does a slow
realizes.
double take
Yeah.
of realization that this man isn't his brother. So it was that scene, and I just remember being very struck by how this movie looked.
Yeah.
And the tone, you could just feel the heaviness
right.
of this movie, and it's like, what is this? And my dad was in control of the remote. So, he's the one who he kept flipping it back to this movie, as my dad, as any dad does, channel surfer, but he would always come back to like one movie that he would want to watch, and we would always be like, just stay on the channel if you want to watch
it.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. Being in your house, sometimes I'm like, I gotta like go outside. I can't.
It's so annoying to this day for me too. But so I said, Dad, what's this movie? And he's told me what it is, and then he told me that it's about essentially like it's about man's hatred. It's about how hate can consume man. And I was like, okay, I'm sold. I don't remember watching. I don't even think that day I watched the rest of the movie or anything.
Yeah, I mean, why would you without seeing the first part?
Yeah, but because of my dad, if I was hanging out with my dad, sometimes I would. But so I must have rented it from Blockbuster like soon after.
Yeah.
Watched it and was like, oh, okay, I found my new favorite movie of all time.
Yeah. I remember watching this in my room, and I think it just had
the closet computer.
I think it was pre me putting the computer in the closet. I set up my desk in my closet to save space at one point, listeners, when I was a kid, which was kind of nice because then you could close it and then it'd be like no electronics in there. It was kind of awesome. I would do it again. I'm going to do it again. So I watched that movie. I want to say that I was just struck by the cover and the title.
Really?
And so I was just like, I just want to watch this movie. And
was this like you watching this? Was this your first PTA or like your first?
Definitely first
PTA.
Who is this
director? I think me too.
Yeah, because I want to say I watched it when I was maybe a freshman, maybe sophomore, which would have been like
in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't think I watched this until later in high. Well, I want to say I was like 16.
I feel like I saw it probably sophomore year, so it would have been out for
a while,
up to 3 years.
Yeah,
which is not that much.
It's a while
for PG-13, like for an R-rated movie, But maybe I didn't have a computer in my room. Maybe it was senior year. I don't know. But I watched it, and I remember at that time, and I'm embarrassed to say it, movies that didn't have like definite endings, I was always like,
oh, you're one of those?
Yeah, I didn't really like it. And I remember when this movie ended, I was like, it doesn't really have a definite ending, although it totally does. But to my smaller brain back then, I'm like, it doesn't have a definite ending, and yet I liked it a lot. I don't know why. Like, it just worked. So I liked it a lot. And then as I got older, I watched it again and watched it again. And I think I've seen it like 10 times probably, which is one of the most rewatched movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, you're not a rewatcher.
No, although I rewatched a movie last week, I think.
Yeah.
I watched Mad Max Fury Road.
If you think about it, though, I feel like you really only rewatch something if the new thing's coming out. Like a new movie by a director.
Yeah.
Or at least in a series.
Yeah.
You do that with TV, too.
Do I?
Yeah, you did that with Succession and Better Call Saul.
I did. I only do it with like TV
like
that's that
big
good.
event stuff. But because we didn't like rewatch Curb.
Right, yeah, that would be crazy. Well, I mean, that'd actually be easier because it's not as intense. But anyway, so I've always really loved this movie. It's always been very high on my favorite movies. PTA is definitely, one of my favorite directors.
Is this your favorite PTA?
I don't think it's even close. I don't think there's like a close second compared to this movie. And yet he makes, I think in my mind, I think Martin Scorsese's probably the best American filmmaker to ever live. That's my opinion. But then of like the next generation, I don't even think there's anyone close to PTA. So PTA is like right up there with like Martin Scorsese. You know,
think he gets his due?
I do think he does.
Yeah.
Do you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta rewatch Phantom Thread, and I gotta rewatch Licorice Pizza. Right after Licorice Pizza ended, I was like, "Okay, press play again."
Yeah.
And I haven't watched it since the first time. Haven't watched Phantom Thread since the first time. We're never ever going to talk about it again. But Mike and I had a hilarious Phantom Thread theater experience.
Yes.
We saw it in Ashland, at the Varsity Theater, in one of the upstairs ones, and I've only seen that movie and Animals.
I saw Parasite in that theater.
That's cool.
That was pretty cool.
I really like their upstairs theaters.
Yeah. Downstairs theaters are total
Awful.
crap.
They're
Except
awful.
for the one down the alley.
The
That's
small
nice.
one's nice. That's a little too small. But
it's fine.
Yeah.
The two auditoriums
big
are
ones
like
are
the
not
worst
good.
theaters in
but we saw it up
the Rogue Valley.
one of the upstairs theaters, and it was we had to have been the youngest people there by like 20, 30 years. It was just all a bunch of older people.
Yeah.
And they thought it was the funniest movie. It was like laugh out loud laughter for these people. Like we're watching an Adam Sandler movie, like as if it was a zany movie that was happening.
And we felt like it was very serious.
It felt so serious. Of course, there was uncomfortable dread the whole time that I would understand a chuckle here, a chuckle there, like, ooh, pull on my collar. But no, these
they were
old
yucking it up.
Loved it.
You know
what? It was so funny.
I've always been a little confused about that, though, because after the movie, I would see interviews with PTA and like people talking about the movie, and they would always be like, "So you made like a really funny movie this time?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I set out to make like a funny movie."
So we didn't get it.
So in my head, I'm like, I guess we were the outsiders. We didn't get that the movie was like a joke, I guess.
Huh.
But it felt tonally like that wasn't what it was presenting, but I loved it.
Yeah.
So, I guess if it works as not a joke, that's great too.
Yeah, I guess.
So, yeah, we do need to rewatch that. And this time we'll bring our whoopee cushions.
And our slide whistles.
Yeah. But yeah, and rewatching There Will Be Blood, I was like, this is just like one of the great American films. Like it's just indisputable.
Yes, but it has to be addressed. In the same year.
Yeah. Oh, yes, please.
No Country for Old Men and The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford came out this year.
Two sweeping dusty movies.
Three sweeping dusty movies that came out in this year. And
3 easy 10s.
One of them, this movie's beautiful.
Yeah.
But The Assassination of Jesse James is probably the most beautiful movie I've ever seen.
It's insane.
Probably is.
It's insane.
That's like up there on one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yeah.
And No Country for Old Men is so freaking good, too. That's like one of the Coen brothers' best movies.
Yeah.
It won an Oscar.
It won Best Picture, yeah.
That I just can't believe that.
Yeah, and it's the same year as Zodiac, which is a different vibe, but it's like...
What a year to be an adult.
You can argue David Fincher's best movie, Paul Thomas Anderson's best movie. You could argue Coen Brothers' movie. I wouldn't agree with that one, but you could definitely argue it. You could. And definitely Andrew Dominic's best movie.
Yes.
Although I haven't watched Blonde, probably I'm never going to get around to it.
Yeah.
So
I didn't get that impression either when that movie came out.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
I bet the movie's beautiful though.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so this movie rocks. What's your number 2 PTA, I guess? Mine's probably Licorice Pizza, because I saw it twice in theaters, and I was like...
Yeah, I would like to rewatch it again to know, but I feel like Magnolia.
Yeah, that one...
That's how I feel right now.
Yeah. That one is really high up there too. It does have one of my favorite Tom Cruises.
Mm-hmm.
But
that I watched that at a time when I did not like Tom Cruise. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I watched it with you the first time I saw it. And you had seen it and you were talking it up.
And I was like, don't worry, Cruise is going to win you over.
I think I didn't like Julianne Moore and I didn't like Tom Cruise. And it wasn't necessarily like I always just avoided movies they were in. It's just like if they showed up in a movie, it's like, ugh.
Yeah. How wrong
I know.
you were.
And even in that movie, that wasn't when I started coming around on Tom Cruise, but it was like, he is really good in that movie though.
Oh, that was what you said?
And
okay.
like Julianne Moore, I think I felt that way too.
Yeah. But yes, the movie's amazing. When we watched it the other night, I feel like the performance by Daniel Day-Lewis is so often discussed that I'm like, oh yeah, I know that I love this performance, but it's almost like, yeah, of course he was good in it. Like we all know that. There's nothing new to talk about in that. And when we were watching the movie, I was just like, it really does deserve to be talked about all the time. This is also like one of the greatest performances ever given by a lead in like any movie across time. It is so mind-blowingly good.
I know.
And it is, we watched another Daniel Day-Lewis movie the day before, The Age of Innocence, Martin Scorsese, and it's just not even the same. You don't see any other, that's the magic of Daniel Day-Lewis. He has no like, it's not like Tom Cruise where we have all this stuff outside of movies that
honestly,
we map onto him.
Honestly, you see a Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah.
I do think that Daniel Day puts butts in seats for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But he melts into the role.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think people are like, I'm going to go see that Daniel Day-Lewis movie. But people say, I'm going to go see that Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah. And we're so fascinated by casting because it's such a art in and of itself, which is cool that they're going to be doing casting at the Oscars. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Because it can be such a weapon to be like, Tom Cruise is in Magnolia and he's got all the, like, he's this certain way and then he's going to play the character a certain way and you as the audience have expectations. Then when they subvert or when they play into them, it's amazing. But Daniel Day-Lewis, it's always like, I don't bring anything to this. Like, you don't bring anything to the role. You just are the character.
Yeah.
Which is the beauty of his method acting and the beauty of his not being public. I think that's the real...
Very private.
Yeah, the real weapon of it.
If no one's seen Age of Innocence, it's good. I personally don't care to rewatch it. But
it is great. It is great.
No, you're right. It is great. If you like period pieces, especially just for the spectacle of it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It looks... All of the outfits and all of the sets are so great. And Daniel Day is a snack.
He is snacking.
He's snacking. He wishes he was snacking a little bit more. But Michelle Pfeiffer was really good too.
She was incredible.
They were both snacks in that movie. And let's be real.
The way they use Michelle Pfeiffer was like a great example of like, this is how you cast someone that we already have all these preconceived notions about. And so there's so much like history the character has that you going into it are like, oh, it's Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So now let's talk about how the movie was made. Because I found out some pretty fascinating stuff that I didn't know about one of my favorite movies. So Eric Schlosser finished writing Fast Food Nation. And people were comparing his script or whatever. I don't know the details in regards to Fast Food Nation to The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. And so that got him to read The Jungle and some other stuff, and he read Oil, and he was like... Paul
Thomas Anderson?
No, this is Eric Schlosser.
Okay.
And he's like, man, this could be a good movie. So he gets the rights to it.
Okay.
Meanwhile, PTA is working on this script about two families fighting, and it's just not working, and he's homesick, and he's in London, and he goes to the store, and he sees this book that has the oil fields of California, and it's called Oil, and he picks it up and reads it. And then he goes to Eric.
Have you read it? Haven't you read this book?
I've read the first chapter.
Oh, I read this book.
Yeah. Sorry.
I just thought you had read it.
Uh-oh, our neighbor has started mowing the lawn.
Cool.
So, Anderson goes to Schlosser, and he goes, I want to make this movie. You have the rights. Can we get this going? And he adapts the first 150 pages.
Who? The guy.
Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson.
Okay.
So now Paul Thomas Anderson's in it. Okay. So he then changes the title because he doesn't feel this is a proper adaptation.
Yeah.
And I looked up the difference between adaptation and adaptation because I always say adaptation, which is incorrect. Adaptation is like your environment changes around you. Like through evolution, an animal will adapt to its environment, whereas an adaptation is taking something.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had this to say about it, quote, "I can remember the way that my desk looked with so many different scraps of paper and books about the oil industry in the early 20th century, mixed in with pieces of other scripts that I'd written. Everything was coming from so many different sources, but the book was a great stepping stone. It was so cohesive, the way Upton Sinclair wrote about that period and his experiences around the oil fields and these independent oilmen. That said, the book is so long that it's only the first couple hundred pages that we ended up using because there is a certain point where he strays really far from what the original story is. We were really unfaithful to the book. That's not to say I didn't really like the book. I loved it. But there were so many other things floating around, and at a certain point, I became aware of the stuff he was basing it on. What he was writing about was the life of oil barons Edward Doheny and Harry Sinclair, so it was like having a really good collaborator, the book.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Yeah. And Daniel Day-Lewis had seen Punch Drunk Love and really liked it.
Oh, cool.
So Paul Thomas Anderson wasn't too scared to approach him.
Oh, okay. So he had him in mind.
He had him in mind and wrote with him in mind.
Wow.
And showed him like an unfinished script, and Daniel Day-Lewis was like, I'm in.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah. So, and this is a quote here as well. So the I Drink Your Milkshake was paraphrased from a quote by former Secretary of the Interior and U.S. Senator from New Mexico, Albert Fall, speaking before a congressional investigation into the 1920s oil-related Teapot Dome scandal. Anderson said he was fascinated to see the word milkshake among all this official testimony and terminology to explain oil drainage.
Okay, cool.
But in 2013, an independent attempt to locate the statement in Fall's testimony proved to be unsuccessful.
Oh.
And an article published in Case Western Reserve Law Review suggested that the actual source of the paraphrase quote may instead have been from 2003 by Senator Pete Domenici of New Mexico.
Okay, weird.
So I wonder if he was just researching so much stuff, got it confused or whatever. Now, for the role of Plainview's son,
I know about this.
You know about this. Tell me about it.
Was that her?
That was her screaming, yeah.
Okay. Sounded weird.
It did sound weird.
From what I have read about the son, is his dad was a traffic cop.
She's okay, folks.
His dad's a traffic cop or state trooper or something, and pulled over, I forget who, but someone on the production of this movie. And they explained what was going on and all this stuff. I read this a long time ago. You're probably going to tell me this is all wrong. Just tell me now.
That's not what I have here.
What do you have?
Do you want to keep finishing it? Or?
I've just read that it's either the mom or the dad, I guess, was the cop, but was like, okay, you have to put my son in this movie. And it wasn't like literally just that. It was like, PTA met the kid and the kid like worked and was right and everything.
That's not what I found at all. That's it. So IMDb trivia will get you. So they looked at people in LA and New York, but realizes they needed someone from Texas that knew how to shoot shotguns and was real world.
Yeah.
And so the filmmakers asked around, and then at a school, a principal recommended Dylan Freezer. And they didn't have him read any scenes, and they talked to him, and that's all they did, and realized he was perfect.
Wow. And he's never acted since.
I don't know about that, but
I don't think so.
I looked up pictures. I saw what he looks like now.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like the kid, but older.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah. So on working on his character, Daniel Day started working on the voice first. Anderson sent him recordings from the 19th century to 1927 and a copy of the 1948 film, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Okay.
Including documentaries on its director, John Huston. According to Anderson, he was inspired by the fact that Sierra Madre is about greed and ambition and paranoia and looking at the worst parts of yourself. Another great movie that is, part and parcel with this movie. And I don't know
I've never seen that movie.
Right. Yeah. maybe we'll see it again, or maybe you'll see it next year.
Okay.
Wink, wink.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Yeah, let's see. A lot of this movie they shot in sequence.
Wow, okay.
Which is cool. Now, this I had no idea about, and maybe you do. Do you know about Paul Dano in this movie?
No.
What happened?
No.
So, Paul Dano is hired onto this movie to play Paul Sunday.
They added him. He was so good, they were like, play both.
Not quite.
Okay.
But you're kind of close. Then there is this guy named Kel O'Neill, and he is playing Eli Sunday. And they shoot for 2 weeks, and then Kel O'Neill is out.
Why?
So he had this to say about it, because there was this rumor that floated around that the reason he left was because he was like too intimidated by Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay.
And
I don't blame you, brother.
But that's not what happened.
Okay.
He said, quote, "Filmmaking is so alchemical that sometimes certain factors don't add up. Some directors I've worked with who very few people would say are better directors than Paul just had a way of making me feel comfortable. For some reason, even though every other actor I know had a relationship with Paul that was super positive and where they did their best work, that just didn't happen with me. I would attribute that primarily to a failure on my side. An actor should...
Wow.
Yeah. An actor should, with every ounce of their humanity, be attempting to give the director what he or she wants, and I recall going in and out on whether I could really do that."
That's fascinating.
And he since said that, like, because he's done some acting, but he doesn't act anymore.
Okay.
And he since said, like, yeah, I don't really... I don't, like, live and breathe acting, so getting fired from this movie was, like, a good thing, because it kind of made me realize, like, yeah, this isn't really what I want to spend all my time doing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So then they say, "Paul Dano, do you want to be Eli Sunday as well as Paul Sunday?" And he says yes, and he has 4 days to prep to start doing Eli Sunday.
to become the villain of this movie. Well, I mean, you know what I mean. The foil of this movie.
And what's crazy is, so every time I watch this movie, and it took me a couple times, like you said, to figure out that there's like a twin brother situation, because it's like, wouldn't you say something about that? Like specifically twins? Is how I always think.
Yeah, it is pretty casual, because he does meet him and he says, "I'm Paul." Yeah. And then later on in the movie, when he meets the family and he sees Eli, he is looking at him like, I know I know you.
But
Aren't
I feel like you don't
Paul?
really notice that.
It's not like a tight, it's a wider shot.
Yeah.
So the mannerisms are very subtle, and Eli is, I mean, I've seen this movie so many times that now I notice it, but as Eli, he is acting in this first initial meeting scene much like warmer. He's acting totally different.
It's funny that you mention that, and I'm not saying I disagree. I've never noticed a difference in the acting.
Yeah.
Between the two, so I've always felt like
he's helping them. He's bringing firewood for them. He's talking to them, and the Paul character, when he comes in and is like, "I have this land, give me money." And then he's like, "Well, let me ask you some questions about it." And he's like, "I'd prefer not to answer until you've guaranteed that you give me money." And then he gives him information. He gives him money, and he's like, "Okay, I'd like to go now." He's like, no, you can stay here. "No, I'd like to take my money and I'd like to go." Like he's very just like, does not want to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I guess you're right. It's just learning that story helped me understand it better, because it's like, couldn't they have like changed their hairstyle or like do anything to like differentiate these two characters?
Well, it's also a time period where you wore like the same drab dark clothing, so that doesn't help.
It's sort of a funny thing, but then the more I watch it, the more I'm like, oh no, they do. He does have that look that he gives him at the table, and then there is a point where he says something like, "Your brother does this," and then at the end of the movie he mentions his brother again.
Yes.
But I do remember the first time I watched it, I just didn't track that, and so I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, is he playing himself
in
for
my
some
head?
reason?
The first time I watched it, the first couple times, like I made up in my head that he just lied about who he was to get this money and stuff, and then when Daniel came to the family farm and everything, it's almost like an unspoken, like, "Oh, you live here," or I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. You're just trying to rationalize it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, all our listeners are like, you didn't get that on first viewing. But the other thing I looked up was how they did the the fire and the oil thing, and the answer I found was they just did it.
Wow. Okay.
So
I mean, they didn't drill into the earth.
No, they didn't. Well, I'm assuming they didn't drill. But it was just funny because I thought like something would pop up, and I just found like this thing about the cinematography in the movie, and it was just mentioning like for the scenes where they shot the fire into the sky, they had to do it all in one night, yada yada yada. And I'm like,
shut down production of No Country for Old Men, filming also in Texas.
Yeah, so I was like, huh, okay, I guess it's not big enough to have its own like article about how they did the fire thing.
Yeah. like, yeah, they just did it.
Okay.
Interesting. Well, yeah, it looks great.
It looks amazing, yeah. So do you want to hit any actors?
Sure. I got to go to the movie. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Well, Daniel Day-Lewis, he is in Iron Man, and he's in Captain America Winter Soldier.
Oh, Micah.
And he's in Black Adam.
No. Daniel Day-Lewis, 3-time Oscar winner for this movie, Lincoln, and My Left Foot.
My Left Foot. Okay, yeah.
Right? I am just kind of...
I'm pretty sure it's My Left Foot, yeah.
Also in Last of the Mohicans. I've never seen that.
Oh, come on. That's Michael Mann. We got to watch that.
I know.
That's a great movie.
Any clips I've seen on TV, it looks boring. When I was a kid.
That's what you...
Seeing out of context
Well,
scenes.
actually, I won't say, because I forgot to say it in that episode. Forget about it.
Yeah, so he's Lincoln.
Yeah.
Paul Dano, who has not been covered before.
I don't know that he's in any sequels, is he?
So this is one of his best performances, obviously.
It is his best performance, period.
Well, I would also argue that his other best performance is in Love and Mercy as Brian Wilson.
You're forgetting about Prisoners, baby.
Oh, and Prisoners.
Love and Mercy is up there.
Sunshine. He's one of my favorite actors.
This is the defining performance.
He was so good in Fabelmans.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He was in that Batman movie. So on and so forth. So funny in Swiss Army Man.
Yeah, Matt Reeves, a wonderful director. The Batman, a wonderful movie. Not probably wouldn't crack the top 10 of my Paul Dano performances.
Oh, are you kidding me? No way.
Yeah.
And he's great.
And it's a good movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's no War for the Planet of the Apes.
I was thinking the other day, though, about the silliness. And I hate being that person because it's so annoying, but it is funny when they're trying to, he's working on the case.
Yeah.
And they're talking about a flying rat. And he just thinks it's a pigeon for a long time.
Well, he thinks it's a penguin.
A penguin. It's funny.
I remember, and I think we talked about this in our Patreon episode on the Batman. I remember when that riddle happened, I immediately was like, oh, it's a bat. Uh-huh. And then they were like, oh, it means this, which means it's probably a penguin. It's the penguin. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I would have thought bat, but I guess it's the penguin. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then when they're like, oh, wait, you mean it's a bat? I was like, oh, so it was what I thought it was.
I know.
I have seen it. It's very funny that I feel like the biggest criticism of that movie is people are like, the riddles are just easy to solve. like they shouldn't be that easy
riddles
to solve.
Are hard, though, to come up with.
Oh, my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And hey, the guy directed War for the Planet of the Apes. He could make Pink Flamingos 2 for all I care, and I'd still like the guy.
Kieran Hines. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. He plays Fletcher, his right-hand man. Mm-hmm. He is in Belfast. Remember, he's so good in Belfast.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
He's in The Woman in Black. He is we've probably covered him in Harry Potter. He's Aberforth Dumbledore, but he's so good.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Which one's that?
It's Dumbledore's brother. He's in the last movie.
In the last movie. Okay. And he's all like, that's Dumbledore. Don't forget that we made our poop go away before we had plumbing, right?
Precisely. Also in this movie, Paul F. Tompkins.
Yes.
He's got a name. His character's name is Prescott.
Prescott F. Tompkins.
You might best known him. He's still with us. Yeah. Hopefully forever.
J.W. Stillwater, Andrew Lloyd Webber,
Mr. Peanut Butter, Neighborhood Listen,
Alimony Tony,
Burnt Me a Payday. I didn't know Mia Payday was spelled this way.
How is it spelled?
Why is this on IMDb?
They have podcasts on there as well.
They do?
Yeah.
Since when?
For a few years now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Millipede. There's probably an episode where he talks about how it's spelled.
Yeah.
Just probably one of the funniest people alive.
Oh yeah, he's the best. Brock Lovett, he plays as well. You know, and we saw him at Varietopia in Portland at the Aladdin Theater. Did a great bit on the, what is it called? The simulation theory. That was very funny.
Yeah. And then Kevin J. O'Connor plays Henry, the brother.
Oh, okay.
He's in Deep Rising, The Mummy, Van Helsing.
Which The Mummy?
The Mummy.
Which one?
Guess. What's The Mummy?
I'm assuming you mean the Brendan Fraser, but there's a lot. So
yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
And he's in so much more. He's in so much stuff.
Okay.
A lot of shows.
I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else.
I know that I have. Okay.
Like you said, this movie, it's like they found a time machine. Everybody actually looks like they're from the 20s.
It's crazy. And then adult HW is played by Russell Harvard. He is also in Fargo season 2.
I think 2. Yeah.
He's in The Hammer, Fringe, Causeway. Don't remember him in that movie.
I don't remember him in that either.
I don't remember him in that boring movie.
Yeah. A movie you can't see because they decided it needs to look like the daytime scenes are shot at night.
Yep.
Good performances in the movie, but not a very good movie.
So that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So how do we want to tackle it? Because this is our anniversary episode. We don't have to go beat by beat if we don't want to.
Yeah.
But we can't. We don't want to underplay There Will Be Blood either. That's the route.
Love a movie that doesn't have any dialogue in the first chunk of it. Just setting the tone, setting the mood, showing the determination of a character.
It's great storytelling.
He breaks his leg, pulls himself out of a pit.
Yeah.
And also takes the time with a broken leg to check what mineral he just, like, that he's finding what he wants to look for in this pit that he blew up. Crazy.
I've heard a lot of people, too, talk about how when they were in the theater seeing the movie, like when he first spoke. I mean, he does say like no a couple of times, and
I think
a couple
he says
of things
like, this is it. Like he's like
under his breath. Yeah. But then when he says like, I'm an oil man, I run a family business, that people were like, you could feel like the air sucked out of the room. Like people couldn't like believe it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure some trailers had it, but you know, because it is like, you know, it's like 20. Well, I don't know if it's 20 minutes, but I always imagine like it's 20 minutes before he like speaks.
Yeah, introduces himself.
Yeah, so
in the silent part, we see that he takes on a baby, an orphan boy, whose father was killed in one of his many oil expeditions.
Yeah.
And then you get to question the rest of the movie if he loves this child he has raised, or if he uses him to get the sympathy and to swindle people into liking him.
Yeah.
And giving him money and land.
So you had asked me if I thought that he loved him.
Yeah.
And I ask you that question now on mic.
That is so tough. I don't want to say no because I think the movie is so much more complicated. It's so good at being more gray area than that. Because there are definite moments where they show interactions between them where it does seem like love. Fatherly love.
Oh my gosh, at the end.
At the end, especially, it's a very sweet and like natural thing. But there are definite times when he plays up his love for his son because he knows people are watching and listening.
Yeah.
And just because he sends him away doesn't mean he doesn't love him.
Yeah.
But I think that he thinks that he loved him.
Yeah.
In the best way that he was capable of doing.
Yeah. I think that he did love him. Yeah. But I think much like abusive people can, you know, it's like they can love people and truly like love their son or daughter and also abuse them. But
I do also think though he didn't, especially as we see at the end of this movie, I don't think he ever loved his son because he's his son. Obviously, we know that, but like, he loved the version of his son that he created in his mind.
Yeah, and when things get tough, he abandons his boy. He abandons his child.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So something I wanted to talk about with this movie,
please,
is the baptismal element of it. So in this movie, I think I picked up on this like the third time I watched it. there's this point at the beginning where they have the oil, and Daniel wipes his hand on the oil, and then he puts his hand out.
Yeah.
And that is the moment where he is like baptized into greed and is like no longer like a good guy from that point on.
And then in that same sequence is when he puts a little dot of oil on the baby. No. The father does.
Which
but it's like christening.
Yes,
christening the child.
Which I had never thought of that until watching it this time.
Same.
Which is like now he is christened into this greed and capitalism and depravity.
Yeah.
And then in the movie, it's very interesting because, of course, we meet Eli Sunday, and he's, he seems a little strange, but he doesn't necessarily do anything bad. He just really, like, he's on the edge. He's on the edge for the first part of the movie where you're like, I don't know about this guy's motives and stuff.
Yeah, especially, it is interesting because when we first meet him and Daniel's explaining the oil situation and buying the land and everything, Eli's the one who's negotiating, not the father. And the father's like, we should listen to him, Eli. Like, we should go
God
for
brought
it.
him here and stuff.
Yeah, but Eli's like, it'll be $10,000. He kind of overplays his hand a little bit. I think he only gets $5,000, but he's negotiating with him, trying to get. And it's like, I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, but I think it's telling that the moment in this movie when he goes to Eli, when Eli goes to Daniel and they're by the oil field,
when they're under that in like the office.
No.
Oh, okay.
He goes out to him outdoors,
and
he's getting upset with him about something, and then Daniel just throws him into the oil, and he baptizes him in the oil, and he gets him all muddy and like not chokes him, but he's like beating him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next scene, he, like breaks a famous commandment, honor thy father and thy mother, and attacks his dad.
Yeah.
And is like, you're a stupid man. You're a stupid man. And from then on out.
He says it like that.
Yeah. And then from then on out, he is like irredeemable for the rest of the movie. And so I just love all of that symbolism.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I'm always like, man, that's so great. Although knowing Paul Thomas Anderson, who didn't know about the frogs in Exodus before he made Magnolia, maybe he doesn't know anything about baptism.
What was he thinking with that then? He just heard that had happened, or?
Because I think there is an occurrence where that has happened before.
Outside of Exodus.
Yeah. And so I think he just heard about it and he was like, oh, that'd be interesting to like tie all these stories together. Is this one crazy event happening? But it's like, how do you not know about the plagues of Exodus?
It's pretty significant.
Yeah, it feels to me like he's like not telling the truth, or
he does. Just forgot. He just forgot.
Anyway,
yeah,
but yeah, that is like my my reading on the movie, and it's cool because it's it's obviously this is a movie about capitalism, but there's just so much religious stuff in it, and I think that's what makes it so much better than just another movie about how capitalism sucks. You want
to know my read on it?
Yeah.
It's great.
I had a feeling you were going to do something like that. Well, it's, speaking about capitalism, what's interesting about this movie is I feel like a lot of times, maybe I'm wrong here, but I just feel like a lot of like anti-capitalist things, at least now, like take place in the present or like the 80s when it was really, abundant American wealth and stuff like that. And there's something really interesting about placing capitalism, a story that's anti-capitalist, in the 20s and teens before America was like a superpower.
I know. I'm thinking about it. Like, this is definitely probably my favorite time period in history. Like, I love movies and stories set in this time period, especially like these frontier things. Wouldn't even say I'm like a Western fan, and I'm not calling this a Western movie, but I just like love it so much. And I think a lot of it is I just love the imagery, the styles of everything.
Dust. You're a big dust girl.
I love dust. But I think one thing that I like about it is it is this frontier time of going out and doing it on your own and making it on your own. And we just have so many stories of people doing that at the expense of others.
Yeah.
And that's just endlessly fascinating to me, especially when you start your journey and that's not your intent.
Right.
But you are met with little choices throughout.
Yeah.
And it's just you can see a descent in a person. What greed does to a person over time. It's just
because it's
so good.
the movie, as a lot of movies that are and not even just like anti-capitalist, but just like greed, movies about greed, is like a lot of times they do start, at least American movies, and you have this idea of like, you know what, this is what America's about. Like, here's this random guy who's in a mine and he's able to make things work and he runs a family business. But then you see where when you're not responsible with that, you just become a depraved person.
I know. Held responsible for it, you mean?
Oh, I don't even remember what I said.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I think something even specifically these stories that I like about white men specifically because of Manifest Destiny and how we came over to this country and the dreams we built upon it, and then fast forward, under 200 years, so some time where it's still a pretty young country,
right?
But so much has changed since then, and that Manifest Destiny has gotten even bigger.
Yeah.
Since then, like, what does that do to a white man? Quite honestly.
Yeah.
And those stories are just so interesting.
You mentioning that makes me think, specifically the white element of it makes me think of Killers of the Flower Moon.
Well, I was thinking about that too. Yeah.
Where it is this story where it's like the natives like got the American dream, and then the white man was not even able to let them have that.
What do you mean by giving them that land?
Like the natives at the beginning of the movie, the Osage people are like rich. They've like
because
done
the oil.
They have like succeeded in the eyes of America. They've done like what people call people
white
great.
People were working for Native Americans in that area. Yeah.
And so then like the white man is like, yeah, no, it's ours. And we need the greed, I'm sure there were greedy natives as well, but like
humans are greedy. That's just human nature.
That's not the story of that movie.
No, it's not. Yeah. Yeah. And then I think especially with that movie, seeing the resilience of a people, that's why the end of the movie is so powerful.
Yeah.
All of these Native American people were murdered.
Yeah.
But it's also just fascinating the FBI started at that time. Yeah. So there's like that element that is so fascinating, but the Osage people just were resilient and didn't like move away or didn't succumb or whatever. It's not like a black and white movie or anything, but
no, it's totally in color.
It's absolutely in color. So many shades of it.
Yeah, but it is dusty. It's another dusty movie.
Yeah,
which is why you like it.
Yeah,
you don't really care about the story or anything.
That's why I don't really like Avatar. Too wet.
Yeah. So back to There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
What else do you want to say about it? I mean, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, a story about greed, and it almost feels like you can't talk about greed in this way without talking about religion.
Yeah.
Because greed is his religion.
Oh, yeah.
And it turns into, for Eli, it also turns into his religion. I mean, how much of it was beforehand? Because you saw the first time, so when that guy died at the well in the town, and Daniel goes to the church to talk to Eli, like, do you think you can take care of the, like, burying him and his things, make sure they go back to his family and stuff, because this man was known to be religious.
Yeah.
And when he went to that church service, everyone was enraptured by him.
Yeah.
And he's definitely like, this man has been touched by God. And it's just so fascinating that he's so young. It makes me wonder, like, has he been doing this since he was like 12?
Yeah.
Like, people are just like, that man, like, this child is a prophet. God speaks through him.
Yeah.
And people now just follow him without question, especially all these little old ladies. Like, even at the blessing of the well, afterward, you saw this pack of little old ladies following after him.
Oh, really? Yeah. I don't think I caught that.
Yeah, that's like... So it's just interesting too, because there's absolutely no romance in this movie.
No. But there's a little romance. Very small though.
Sure. But like, it just makes me wonder, like, and I don't really want to get into this realm, but like he has all these women that are like super into him because of, and not into him in that way, they just really admire him and trust him religiously and everything. And it's like, I just can't help but think, how is he abusing that power? And
I think it's just for power sake.
No, I think so too, but I just makes me think like how much was he what was he doing with that power before Daniel even got there?
Yeah.
Like he definitely, I'm sure, felt pretty high and mighty in this little town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just I just like how they do it. I think it's really interesting.
Well, and you know, this is just like quintessential American movie because then at the heart of this movie is also like the Christian religion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always fascinating to see how it's portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they go more charismatic. Like this is a very charismatic church. But something that's interesting is everyone in this movie, which sometimes actually can be a crutch, I think, in movies when they're not like fair to religion, but not in this movie. It's too like integral to everything. But no one is like feels like they're actually a follower of Jesus.
I don't even know if Jesus is mentioned besides like blood on the cross or something. Like he's hard, like maybe in that one scene.
But I mean, like I think of all the things Eli's trying to do.
Yeah,
it's like you do this for me so it can help my church. It's not like out of generosity,
right?
And then even like Bandy, he's like, I will give you this if you go get baptized.
Yeah,
it's not
so not on your own free will, but on mine.
Yeah, which would not really mean anything. Obviously, he's sitting there and he's like not really doing it. He's just doing it to get the land. And I don't know. I feel like that theme like hit me harder this time. I think I'm a lot older than the last time I saw it, and I've seen a lot of people, you know, at church or like who've left the faith since, you know, I've known them and stuff like that. And it's just interesting watching the movie now and being like, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that do these sorts of things. I'm not saying the people who left the faith that I know have done that, but there's just, you know.
But I think people have left the faith because of people like that.
Yeah, but I've definitely been in situations where I'm like I'm a Christian and you're talking to me like you need to save me.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing right now? And you know, and like what are you trying to get out of me by this? You know,
exactly.
Like I kind of said a comment where at the beginning of this movie, this time around, it almost felt good to me that he like slights Eli when he doesn't let him bless the well.
Yeah.
Because Eli's just being so like manipulative.
Well, that's the interesting thing about it. Because of the nature of Daniel, he doesn't trust anybody. And because he's someone that's like, how can I get something out of every single relationship that I have, including his own son?
Yeah.
What is this man trying to get out of me? It's like so obvious that Eli is trying to get things out of him. And Daniel is so good at reading that that he's like, it is like his purpose in life to get what he wants and give no one what they want.
Yeah.
Of course, he does that eventually with Bandy because he has no other choice. Like he has to do that.
Right.
And that's like his biggest humiliation. Yeah. Because Eli humiliates him publicly in front of everybody. But yeah, I think this is probably going to sound really like people are going to be like, what? But with Daniel's character, especially when he's talking to his brother and he's like, I hate most people. And blah, 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 has a hard time with people. I relate to that so hard. I don't hate most people. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. But
and let me be clear. You're a very kind and generous person.
Yeah. I'm not relating to this character in too strong of a way. But in terms of like, we don't know much about his childhood, but I think you can guess how it probably was. But it's like, he doesn't trust anybody. He doesn't like anybody. And especially that's the very powerful thing of this man who claims to be his brother comes into town. And it's like right when HW has his problem where he loses his hearing. And it's like a godsend for Daniel. Yeah. He does send his son away because he can't handle taking care of him.
He's abandoned his boy. He's abandoned his child.
And in a way, his son's kind of lost his use for him.
Yeah.
But then now this other person's coming into his life and he's like, oh, how can I use him?
Mm-hmm.
But there is definitely a opening up to him.
Well, the moment that really hit me this time is when he does say and take him to the Peachtree dance. he has this look on his face that he does not have in the rest of the movie, where it's like
he's reminiscing.
He's reminiscing, and he's not trying to get anything out of this person.
No.
This is like the only time in the movie. And then in that moment, he realizes that the person isn't who he thought he was. And then he was like going to open himself up to this person.
The only other moment he probably feels that way is, I can only think of two. Because okay, so the first one is when they have that tiny little flashback scene between him and HW at the end of the movie.
Yes.
Where they roughhouse a little bit, and it's so sweet.
Yeah.
And devastating.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it's a genuine moment after he gets baptized for real, and everyone's sitting back down in their pews, and Mary comes up to him and hugs him.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's genuinely like, I think he has affection for that child.
Yeah.
I do think part of it is because he knows that she's abused.
Yeah.
And he knows that that's wrong.
Man,
but it's
I
like
love that scene when he calls out the dad.
I know. When he like is openly showing affection.
Yeah.
Someone's openly showing affection for him.
Yeah.
And it's just a child. It's so childlike. You know?
That would maybe be, that would be the only other
the only
part, I think,
times
where he's being genuine and there's no facade.
But I guess what I mean is like, I just really relate to, I have a hard time probably in some, not all the time, but I think this is the Martinez in me. Well, I know it is. But you're always trying to wonder what the other person's trying to get out of you.
Yeah.
And maybe people are like, geez, what kind of life did you have? I had a very loving and wonderful upbringing, but very paranoid about that kind of stuff. And I think
Martinez clan is quite paranoid. I've witnessed many and had many conversations where I'm like, this is absolutely crazy that you thought from that text that this person means this.
Yeah, I'm not as bad as everybody.
You're not. No, you're really not.
But I think that's another reason why I like this movie so much, because I've never seen it illustrated in a way like this.
Yeah. I don't like most people.
Yeah.
If
I have any friends listening, they're like, I wonder if she likes me.
And you do.
Yes. What if I didn't say anything?
So all of that is great. The cinematography in this movie is just mind-blowing. And there's a shot in this movie, and if you decide to watch this after this, or if you know how they did it, I've been dying to figure out how they did it. I should see if there's commentary, actually.
Yeah.
But there's a shot where there are people walking beside an open barn, and the camera goes through the barn, but the level changes, like the ground. So
the camera doesn't shift.
It stays. Yeah, and
don't you think that at that time they had those cameras that had that crazy crane that's just like a...
That's the only thing I can think of, but it seems so long.
Yeah.
For that, but it's got to be that, right? They just shot a crane through.
That's what I think.
Because I don't know if they had gimbals yet, and it seems too high to be a gimbal.
Yeah.
Like it'd be someone like holding it above their head.
Yeah.
And then it can't be like a tractor, or I mean like a cart.
Yeah, because we see the ground before.
Yeah, and the camera doesn't like adjust to the ground. So, I just am dying. That shot, it's quietly like one of the most insane shots of the whole movie to me, where it kind of breaks my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Because it goes all the way through, and then you're like into a new shot. I mean, it's the thing I was talking about with Spielberg, where it's like the shot goes on long enough that the frame changes, and it almost looks like they cut to a different shot.
Yeah, you don't notice it. That is his genius.
He is the best at it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, there's probably
M.
some
Night's
people...
really good at it, too.
M. Night's great at it. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But there's probably some people from like the 30s that are like insane at it, back when...
Oh, of course. But let's just talk about our lifetime.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. I don't think they did much oneers back then. No, they do. Yeah, what am I talking about?
They definitely did because of translation from the stage,
Yeah, no, I was being stupid.
Have you seen Rope?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've seen Gone with the Wind recently in theaters, and there's a lot of shots that are like a minute or 2 minutes long, and it's just characters talking. And we need to do that more. Yeah. Which this movie does.
Yeah.
This movie really does.
A lot of one shots, long shots, I mean.
Yeah. And it's not, I love a good showy Children of Men one shot, but I do think the more impressive is like two actors walk in a room and they act for like a minute and a half, and you're just like, they just did that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or if you're a gorilla on a tank and the tank is spinning around.
I mean, that too. I'll
not
accept
a bonobo. Sorry, not a gorilla.
A chimp.
No, that was Koba, and he's a
okay.
bonobo.
Okay.
Yeah. So, by the way, folks, we saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes last night.
We can't talk about it.
Honey Choo Choo, baby good.
Koba Koba, no.
Yeah, so I've talked about a lot of the things. It's always striking when they go to the ocean because the water, you're just like, oh, wow.
Because of the water.
Well, it's just such a change of look. He kills that one guy.
His brother.
Yes, I was thinking of Bandy,
the
but
guy
Bandy.
That's not his brother. Yeah.
Yeah, then he gets baptized, which we kind of talked about.
Yeah.
Is it okay that we're kind of blasting through? It's the 6th year.
Yeah.
It's our episode. But then it kind of jumps forward in time.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that his son has married. We didn't really talk much about him leaving his son, but that's okay. His son marries.
But we basically addressed it. He just can't handle taking care of him. And I think a big part of it is because his son doesn't have value to him anymore. And
right. We talked about that before we saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And now
I think
we're living in
mentioned it here as well.
We're in a post-Kingdom world.
Recording. But he sends the kid to a school, some kind of boarding school.
Yeah.
You assume. And then people keep asking him about his son.
Yeah.
And he's also, to him, he's being judged for not being a good father. Even though all people are being like, how is he doing?
Yeah.
But to him, that's a slight.
You don't tell me how to raise my son.
Yeah.
One day I'm going to come to you and I'm going to cut your throat.
Yeah. So eventually he gets his son back because he does have value to him still.
Yeah. Now the scene where they go to the restaurant and he orders the steaks.
So uncomfortable.
Also, this is something I have to mention. More than any other movie, for me personally, the handwork in this movie is unbelievable. On both actors, but especially Daniel Day-Lewis.
On both actors? You mean him and Paul Dano?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything he does with his hands.
Oh, that's right. You don't see anyone else's hands in this movie.
That's right.
That's the really weird thing about this movie.
I never understood that.
No.
But everything he does with his hands, like I can see scenes and I know what his hands are doing. Like when I'm thinking about this scene, he's like a glass of whiskey and a thing of milk, and then he's like, and 2 steaks, and he like puts his hands out, and just the way his body moves, it's really some incredible acting. Mm-hmm. I mean, he should have won an Oscar, and he did.
Yep.
But they should have given him one the next year for this movie again. Mm-hmm. They should still be trying to like give it to someone else, but they're like, we got to give it to Daniel Day from There Will Be Blood again. I've always dreamed that he would. I was hoping that he would win for Phantom Thread because then he'd be tied for most Oscars.
Mm-hmm. But alas, no, and he's retired. But maybe I just want 2 more. I want him to take the title and have 5.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's possible.
I feel like he's for real retired.
I think he is, yeah. I mean, Phantom Thread was like...
That's so fascinating to me, though.
2016 or something?
Because, I mean, I've never watched an interview with him, but I guess I'd like to think that you love what you do. Especially if he
also likes making shoes.
Well, I know that, but if you're really good at it.
Yeah.
But maybe over the years, it's just acting takes it. I mean, especially the way that he does it, it just takes too much out of him. And it's just it's just so impressive when people can just be done. Yeah. That.
But it could be a Ohio situation where all of a sudden, it's 2030 and it's like Spielberg and Daniel Day-Lewis are coming out with another movie.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
It'd be cool if it was Paul Thomas again. But I also feel like him having just those 2 is pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't say no to a 3rd.
I wouldn't say no to a trill. We could cover it on the main feed. But yeah, so then we go to the future, and his son...
You get in a time machine, go to the future.
...is going to
start his own business. Mary. Yeah. And before he comes to his father's house, there are some establishing shots of the house. It's this big, grand house.
Yeah.
And he uses it as a shooting range, part of it.
This is so Citizen Kane. It's crazy.
So much. He has all this wealth, and he is the only person here. And
he's so depressed and crazy. Yeah.
So bored. Yeah. The only people there, other people who are there are people who work for him.
Yeah. Well, and this is a thing, I think, because I would like to get to a point where music and podcasting pays for everything, and I don't have to take another job. Mm-hmm. Right? But I there's also a fame element that comes along with that once you get to a certain level. Although what I'm asking for doesn't necessarily require fame. But it always seems nice. But you see all of these stories and you hear real life stories, and it's hard to imagine it unless you've tasted and seen, but it's it really is not satisfying. That will not satisfy you. And I just think, that's why in one of my songs, Talk Louder, I mention that, where it's why do I pray for more? Because it's like with more things and more whatever, it just is more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts relationships with people and God and all this stuff. I mean, there's people who make it work, but it is funny. It's like this antithetical thing where it's like, I really want to, make it, and I want to be touring like big stages and stuff like that. And then at the same time, it's like, but maybe that would be worse than always wishing I had that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll never know,
Yeah.
Unless something crazy happens. And then I'll go, okay, I liked it better when I was striving for this. I don't know. And sometimes
I like to call
artists
that the Tim Burton effect.
Yeah, sometimes artists just suck when they get to a certain level.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just went on a tangent.
Well, yeah. So his son comes to him, and we learned that it seems that his son has been working with him this whole, since forever. And what he's telling his dad is him and his wife are going to go to Mexico, and they're going to drill for themselves. So start his own business. That's what he wants, is to venture off from his dad. It's time to part
Nepo
ways.
baby.
Such a Nepo baby.
The OG Nepo baby.
And his dad, Daniel, is very derogatory toward him and his translator.
Oh, yeah. He's never bothered to learn this whole time.
Never bothered to learn this whole time. He has been deaf since he was, like 10, however old that kid is. And, and is making fun of him for it.
Yeah.
And forces him to speak.
Yeah.
Which he does.
And
he's
so jealous and so spiteful of people that he can't even just let this go. And they wouldn't even be in competition. Well, it's also his son. Like.
No, yeah, well, that's what his son's trying to explain, but you can't explain that to someone like Daniel.
No.
If you're drilling oil at all, you're just a competitor.
A competitor.
And more than anything, his son is betraying him.
Yeah.
The one person, I mean, we don't really get to see the relationship as he grows up, the son, but knowing that he's worked with him throughout this time, it's like probably the one constant source in his life, consistent source.
Yeah.
And that one person is now betraying him, just as he always expected he would.
Yeah.
He was just waiting for his son to do it. And that's when he tells him that he was an orphan in a basket.
Bastard from a basket.
Bastard from a basket.
Bastard from a basket.
Tells him that he's not even his son. That's why he's
and that moment
fail.
where the translator isn't translating, he's like, tell him. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then he leaves, and it's like he's got nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the showdown.
Mm-hmm.
This great scene, and this definitely hit the pop culture. I drink your milkshake, as one does, especially when you go to In-N-Out. Got to get that strawberry milkshake.
I think the first time. Okay, no, actually, I also have a memory probably when my dad was channel surfing, flipping back to this movie and seeing some of this last scene. Because I remember I've seen the milkshake scene prior. But I feel like almost every time I watch it, we get to the scene, I'm like, oh yeah, what happened to Eli?
I think
we just saw him getting on a train last. That's all we saw.
Yeah.
Which I think so he took his sermons and his.
Well, now he's on the radio.
Yeah, now he's on the radio.
Yeah, it's funny that now that you mention it, I think I never saw like a single frame of this movie until I watched it.
Wow.
So that's kind of cool. Pretty cool of me, huh?
That's like the coolest thing you've ever done.
Yeah. Well, one time I did that kickflip ollie backflip.
It's not
right
as
off
cool
the
as
skating
this.
rails.
The skating rails?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty cool.
Eli came to tell him that Bandy has died and he can now acquire the land that he has been seeking, the one land that's been so elusive.
Drainage!
And he tells him that he can speak to the grandson who has gone off to Hollywood to be an actor, and he's quite good at it. And it's always so funny.
I think he is very good looking.
It's always so funny to me when, Daniel's like, good for him. And he's like, I will tell him. I will talk to him for you. Oh, no, he says, would you like me to talk to him for you? And it's like, what? What the F would he tell? What does that even mean? That's so strange.
Oh, we are such good friends, Daniel. Daniel, we have been friends for so long.
Crazy performance.
Yeah, this is where it really hits home.
He should have been nominated. It's stupid. I don't know who else was nominated this year. Obviously, it was a great year.
Let's take a look after we finish this scene. I'll try and pull it up.
Okay.
I'm curious. I'm curious about the Oscars this year. But yes.
Yeah. So he is trying to tell Daniel, let's do it. Let's go in on partners. Give me money for it. and stuff. And he's explaining Daniel lets him explain everything to him.
Yeah.
And Daniel says, okay, yeah, that's great. And you can tell Eli's surprised, like, why is he just saying
that was so easy. Like, yeah.
But then Daniel says, you have to say that you're,
that you are a false prophet and God is a superstition.
Yes. Which he makes, just like in the scene when Daniel's being baptized, Eli makes him scream that he's abandoned his boy. So Daniel makes him do it like it's one of your sermons. Say it.
Now imagine your congregation's right here. Say it. Tell them. And he's doing it, and then he's like getting louder and louder. And then he said, I've already got that oil.
Yeah. And Eli doesn't understand. And that's when he says,
there's
drainage.
And there's a moment on Eli's face where he's like, I can't believe I just said that I wonder if he's more upset that he called himself a false prophet or more upset that he said that God is a superstition.
Well, I do think that it is the character is so good, the story is so good that it is not like, I believe that he believes in God. Because
I see what you mean.
Eventually he does say, it's like he crumbles and he's like, it's been so hard for me, Daniel, my investments. I think the depression's happening. Or it's about to happen, or it just happened. Like, things are not going well.
What year is it? 27?
1927, I think.
Oh, I think that was after the Depression.
Well, he's probably still being affected by it then.
Yeah. But he's also like wearing nice clothes. But maybe
that's an image thing.
Yeah.
But he's saying that his investments have not gone well, and he is at. He really, really needs money. He's really desperate.
Oh, 29 to 39. So it's about to happen.
Okay.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Got it. But he is saying that God tests you, and he never tells
these mysteries, Daniel.
Yeah,
he tests. They're so mysterious,
and God doesn't tell you when it's going to be over, when the test is over, what you need to learn from it, what you need to do, and you can tell he's frustrated. And I think he believes that.
Yeah.
So I do believe that he believes in God.
I don't know if it's like the same thing as like.
I think. Well, do you
like
think
does Joel Osteen believe in God? I don't know.
Well, that's the interesting thing that I was going to say. I think that someone like Eli has, just like how Daniel has created a version of his son that he could love and that was useful for him. Eli has created a version of God that he can believe in.
Yeah,
and it's definitely very much a prosperity gospel.
Yeah,
version of that. I think.
Oh yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I just had to think about that.
Because I do believe that he believes in God, but it's like, what God?
It's like
does
his
he
version
believe in?
that he's
especially like believes in the God of money,
Yeah.
The God of prosperity, which is Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
And the like.
Yeah. It reminds me of a show I will not recommend and stopped watching, The Righteous Gemstones. John
Goodman.
Almost said Adams.
John Adams, the president?
Yep. John Goodman in that show, he's very greedy and he's not a good guy. But at the end of the day, it's like, I do think he believes in God.
I agree. Yeah.
But it's more so because he believes in his wife, I think, than anything else.
Sure.
But anyway, don't want to talk about that show. But so all of that happens. And then Daniel explains what drainage is. And he describes it as a milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I have a straw that goes all the way around.
And I drink it up. I drink it up.
I drink your milkshake. Then he throws him on the bowling alley and fights him and kills him with a bowling pin.
Mm-hmm.
And then his butler comes down and he says, I'm finished.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes, run, dun, 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 dun.
Do you notice that throughout the movie, throughout time, as time goes on, he limps a little bit more on his broken leg?
Never realized
the funny thing is, I noticed that for the first time on this watch.
Because I was just like, oh, he's an old man. But no, it's the leg from the beginning.
A little before that, we got to this flashback. Because I don't remember.
So he's still carrying the reminder of his pre-greedy, terrible self with him into his old life. Well, yeah, but it's like the innocent version of himself.
Sure.
He is reminded with every step.
Before the point of no return.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's an awesome scene. It's a great movie.
Great font, by the way.
Great font.
One of the best.
Cannot be underestimated.
Yeah. Understated.
Or underestimated. People have tried to underestimate it, and we go, no,
look at it.
You weren't able to do it. And they're like, no, I can't underestimate this. Yeah, it's just incredible. If you haven't seen it, you're a fool, Eli. you need to watch it. Oh man, there was something. Oh yeah, so this movie is very important to us. We love it. And for what was it that I got you this stuff for?
Oh, it was like our first anniversary dating or something.
Yeah, I got Jordan. I went to Roxanne Bowling Alley and I paid $5 to get a bowling pin, and then I got some oil and put it in a little vial, and then I bought a teddy bear and I dipped its hand in oil.
Its paw.
Its paw, and then it had a recording thing, which has since died of batteries, but it would say, "Bastard from a basket. I've abandoned my boy. I run a family business, and it's finished. It is finished, or I'm finished. I'm sorry."
Mm-hmm.
And so that was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to tell the audience that. Made our own.
Where is that bowling pin?
It's in the garage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can't get rid of it.
No.
Now, do you want to hear about the Oscars that year?
Yes.
Because it's so insane. Best pick. I got to go through a few of these because it's crazy. Best Picture, No Country for Old Men, winner. Atonement, Juno, Michael Clayton, There Will Be Blood.
Wow.
Did not realize Juno got nominated for Best Picture. Cool nomination.
Yeah.
But Michael Clayton, too.
Yeah.
One of the best written movies that I've ever seen. Director, you got the Coen brothers. Julian Schnabel for The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. That's I don't remember what country that's from. Haven't seen it, but I've heard it's awesome.
Oh, okay.
Jason Reitman, Tony Gilroy, and Paul Thomas Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. Murderer's Row, at least at the time. I'm not putting I'm not putting Jason Reitman at a Murderer's Row classification anymore.
I think because of this movie, it did a lot for him.
Yeah. Best Actor, Daniel Day-Lewis, winner. George Clooney. Johnny Depp for Sweeney Todd. That's a fun nom. Tommy Lee Jones in The Valley of Elah. So not for
No Country for Old Men.
Never even heard of this movie.
Well, he wouldn't be a leading actor anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, kind of.
No,
no,
I don't think
right.
he would campaign for that.
Viggo Mortensen for Eastern Promises. That's a good performance.
I've never seen that movie.
It's good. Best Actress. I don't think I've seen any of these except for Juno. Anyway.
Yeah, women aren't important.
We'll skip it.
Okay.
No. Okay, I'll do it because now I'm in trouble. Marianne Cotillard won for a French movie.
I never knew she won an Oscar.
I didn't know that either. Cate Blanchett is nominated for Queen Elizabeth. Julie Christie, Away from Her. Laura Linney, The Savages. Elliot Page for Juno.
Cool.
Another nom for that. That's crazy. Supporting.
I knew that.
Javier Bardem wins. Nominated.
Okay, I don't remember if he had won or not.
Casey Affleck, The Assassination of Jesse James, nominated.
Oh, that is so tough. I got to watch both of those movies again because I want to give it to Casey. But I know Javier's insane.
Yeah.
But Casey Affleck did a truly under your skin performance. It's his best movie, easy.
I mean, is there a second? Well, the Ocean's movies.
Well, apparently, what's that one that came out a couple years ago?
No, come on. They're not better than Ocean's, I'm sure.
No.
Manchester by the Sea, I'm sure it's not as good.
I just heard he was really good, okay?
Yeah, I think he won for that year, but...
He didn't win.
I think he did.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
Then you have Philip Seymour Hoffman, Charlie Wilson's War, a movie I haven't seen, but it's Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Hal Holbrook for Into the Wild, and Tom Wilkinson for Michael Clayton. So I do see
Is that Tom Wilkinson? Is that the guy that died?
He's the guy from Batman.
You
know, the first Batman Begins. He's Falcone.
Okay.
I think.
I don't remember.
Saoirse Ronan was nominated for an Oscar, Best Supporting Actress that year. For Atonement.
Oh, I've never seen Atonement.
Yeah.
I've heard it's good.
Wow, Best Original. This is a crazy year. You got Juno wins. Lars and the Real Girl nominated.
Wow. Whoops, sorry, I hit the mic.
Michael Clayton nominated, should have won.
Well, yeah.
And here's what I would do for number 2. Ratatouille was nominated.
Ratatouille.
Yeah, and then The Savages, which I'm not familiar with what that is either. But yeah.
Did you do Best Actor yet?
Yeah. Best Adapted was No Country, and that won. Atonement, Away from Her, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and There Will Be Blood. So, yeah. What a crazy year for film. I mean, I've never seen Atonement. Have you seen Atonement?
I just said I haven't, but I've heard it's good.
Okay.
Is that a Jane Austen thing?
I don't know. Best Art Direction went to Sweeney Todd. That's cool. And let's see. Anything else that would be fun? Best film editing, The Bourne Ultimatum.
Ian McEwan wrote Atonement.
Oh, yeah. I totally know who that is.
Same.
Well, that's all I have to say about There Will Be Blood. I'm finished.
Same.
Thanks for listening. Next week, we go to War for the Planet of the Apes, and then it's Kingdom, and then it's Furiosa, and then I changed my mind. I think we should take a week off and then do Spider-Man.
I agree.
So we'll do that. But yeah, but you're still getting 3 spanking episodes coming
Well, what's
up.
the movie we're doing next year?
Oh, let's do The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Why?
So that you can finally see it.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll be connected to There Will Be Blood.
Okay. Great.
You do not want to?
No, that's great.
You reacted so poorly to it.
I just thought you'd have a personal fave you'd want to do.
Yeah, I've only seen it once, but I really liked it.
Okay.
Let's watch it again.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.